Okay, we have moved on from chapter 24, the longest story in Genesis, I think, except maybe for Joseph. One of those 2 or 3 times told stories, which means it's really important, but not necessarily interesting from a modern Western standpoint. But we made it. We learned some things, hopefully. Uh, Here's our timeline. It's kind of a timeline of the history of Israel. We are there on the far left with, we're about to start the story of Jacob and Esau, but Jacob, which begins the story of Israel. And so it'll take a long time before Israel reaches the full extent of the covenant promise. That will happen under Solomon there in the late or the early 900s BC. We are now in 2000 or something like that. So it'll take a long time, and they won't keep that land for long. They're not up to it in any way. But that green line right there, that's the if you're going to do some lines of importance, one would be from Jacob to David's son Jesus. And now we await the return of the king. But that's a pretty good summation, I think, of the history of Israel up to the return from exile. And you can see those the thing across the top there: promise, anticipation, fulfillment, reflection, and then warning or promise, and start all over again. And that's a repeated pattern in the Bible. And we're in that right now. Genesis is just full of promise, anticipation, and fulfillment. And in a sense, all of the history of redemption is promise, anticipation, and fulfillment, and then reflection. And the proclamation that we have today is a proclamation reflecting on the great acts that God has performed to bring about the redemption of his people. So we are the second redeemed people, people of God, the first being physical Israel, and now through Christ, that the barrier, the exclusionary barrier that was Moses, has been broken down, and the Gentiles, the non-Jews, have come streaming in through faith and not through Moses. And the story of that really gets going, beginning of the story of that really gets going with the story of Jacob, who will become Israel in this book. So I like that. I like that timeline right there. Kind of establishes, you can see on the bottom, the kind of the context in which Israel existed. Starts out as a patriarchal clan, the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then the 12 sons. Then they become a slave people in Egypt when they're simply the Hebrews, and they disappear, in a sense, for 400 and some odd years. Then coming out of that, after the Exodus and the conquest, they become a tribal federation. So you have the 12 tribes of Israel, and really 11, plus Levi. But now they're a tribal federation of elders. There's no nation there, really. Elders, and then every once in a while a judge or two. Then finally, at the end of the 10th century, is that right? Yeah, the 10th century. Did I get that right? Which one is the 10th century?
Saul came on the scene.
Well, yeah. So there's David's kingship starts, and that's the first time you're going to start talking about a kingdom of Israel. And then that will disintegrate in the Babylonian exile. Well, 2 exiles, the northern and the southern exile, under Nineveh and then Babylon. And that kingdom will disintegrate. And then we have the promise of another kingdom, which will never end, ruled over by a king who is the King of Kings, and his name is Jesus. And he too is a descendant of David, who was a descendant of Jacob. So that's why Israel matters from our perspective. We have a king who is a descendant, the rightful heir to the throne of David, only now the king is has a kingdom that he rules over from at the right hand of God. So impromptu summation of the history of Israel, history of the redemption of the people of God, culminating in the return of the King, when he will establish his kingdom here on earth at a time of his choosing in the future that no one knows, in spite of what they may write in terms of books to make a profit or get a following.
Apparently, Christ was supposed to return this past week on the 23rd. Did you hear that?
No,
Yeah, my sister-in-law posted on Facebook, it's 24th, we're still here.
Oh, yeah, there was a big deal on the news.
I don't think it'll be hard to spot when it happens. All right, so Sarah has now passed off the scene. In a sense, Abraham has too in terms of story, but they're going to report his death now. And now Isaac is front and center for a moment. And then Isaac largely will matter because he is the transitional figure between Abraham and Jacob. And then the story, once Jacob is born, the story of Jacob and his family will dominate the rest of the book. And it's just around the corner here. So Sarah's now dead, and we have this ambiguous statement at the beginning of 25. Abraham took another wife, whose name was Keturah. When did he take this wife? We already know he had two wives. Sarah and who? Hagar, or whatever you want to call her. Now we hear about a third wife here. Is that wife subsequent to Sarah's death, or?
Oh, I've always taken it, but I'm not sure the passage is clear enough to say.
I mean, what is that? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 6 sons. I don't think there's any reason to think that this happened after Sarah died, because it's going to say that he has concubines as well. So that's all you get right there. Don't give him the benefit of the doubt by modern conventional standards or mores. Oh, Abraham would never take a wife besides Sarah. Well, except that Sarah urged him to take a wife other than Sarah, whose name was Hagar. I mean, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
What's the difference between a wife and a concubine?
Not much.
Your rights as a human being. Don't you think?
Well, I would agree with that. It seems like concubine, sort of a slave sense, but then again, maybe
It's
it's that way too.
you know, it's this harem idea.
Yeah.
And it's all about descendants and progeny, far more important to them than it is to us. I mean, you know, this principle of be fruitful and multiply, you can take that at the macro level for the whole human race, but they took it seriously. That was a serious thing for each and every male and female. Be fruitful and multiply. I mean, wait till we get to the war. It wasn't, Jacob was a passive, I don't know what you want to call it, participant in the war between Rachel and Leah to see who could have more kids. That was a Rachel and Leah war. Jacob goes, what do you want from me? You know, I'm not God. I can't, I can't do anything, you know. Well, he could, it turns out, but yeah, when you get the point, it's Rachel and Leah. They're giving him his their concubines, more kids, more, I mean, you know, everybody was in on it. All right. I don't know why I said all that. For what it's worth.
Always kind of interesting to me is in the first few verses there, after he's married Keturah, she bore him 6 sons. And then the first 3, he talks about Jokshan, which was the second son, and his sons. Then they tell the last son, Dedan, his sons, and then they go back to
Midian?
Midian, which is
The third,
Third son.
1, 2, 3, 4,
And,
the fourth son.
and so they never seem to then you tell us about the first son. If he had any kids or anybody else, it was,
Or he died.
You know, I would assume that he did not have kids.
They had a high mortality rate. You never know. I always assume that when the narrative leaves somebody out, that person died young or before he was. Okay, verse 6. Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah. She bore him Zimron. I got to read names now. Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua. He skips over, as Mike said, to the second son. Jokshan fathered Sheba and Dedan, or they're the only descendants that the Israelites of Moses' day would have. Yeah,
Maybe they're the ones that had boys.
that too. The sons of Dedan were Asherim, Letushim, and Leummim. The sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Hanok, Abida, and Eldah. All of these were the children of Keturah, Abraham, and then there's this immediate contrast statement made. You can almost put the but in between there. But Abraham gave all that he had to Isaac. So they are not heirs. But to the sons of his concubines, what? Abraham gave gifts. And while he was still living, he sent them away from his son Isaac eastward to the east country. Why would he send them away while he is still living?
Same reason why he sent Ishmael away.
If he doesn't do it, then you can have a war over inheritance or something like that. So
And he
he
has
sent
the
them.
authority to send them away. Isaac wouldn't have that.
So he makes them depart. So there's no question that all of the descendants who aren't Isaac, they will depart the land of Canaan. There will be no competition. There will be no contest over who will inherit Canaan. Nor will there be the destruction of those peoples. Do I get this right? At the time of the conquest. He does not end up destroying his own people, his own progeny.
We don't know how far east they went, do we? You assume that they went back to Haran in that area or to her,
I don't know. I think it's the eastward principle.
like Jordan? That area?
No, I mean, if you go all the way back to Genesis, all the way back to Cain and Abel. When Cain got driven out, all the way back to Adam. When Adam got driven out, he got driven east.
Mhm.
When Cain got driven out, he got driven east. Abraham was called from the east. Ishmael went east. He's
I'm
gonna,
gonna just basically send him back to where his family roots were.
Right, well, I mean, in Canaan, you couldn't go west, you end up in the Mediterranean,
Right.
but there does seem to be this principle
yes.
of
What about that?
wonder how, hey, Robert, how do I get this reading view to start from the slide that I have selected? Starts from the beginning. I just discovered it. Let me get rid of this. That was a rhetorical question. Anyway, get rid of the floating. Go away. Thank you. There just seems to be this principle that the East is a land of cursing or something.
Mhm.
And they come back west and now we get into blessing when Abraham gets back to Canaan and so forth. And so once again, you know, these peoples are going to go over there and they're going to be, it's all kinds of trouble with the sons of Ishmael and so forth. And we're going to meet them again in the story of Joseph, the Ishmaelites. But I don't know, it's hard to tell. But there's just this principle of the eastward, there's Canaan and then there's eastward. I don't have a lot more to say, other than, I mean, what, if you ask why is this important? Well, okay, why is it important? Why is this part of the story here?
Basically, Midian become Moses' father-in-law, or, you know, descendants of Midian become Moses' father-in-law. So basically, he ends up married, Moses ends up married into another part of the family. When
Never thought about that.
I looked at that, I thought Midian. And then you're gonna see Midianites in the story of Joseph's enslavement in Egypt.
Right, you know.
Is this a common name? Who are these Midianites? You
It
know,
almost seems like they go with the Ishmaelites at some point in time. You know, they're just was sold to the Ishmaelites and the Midianites, either the Ishmaelites sold to the Midianites or they're the
Yeah.
same people, and I haven't been able to figure that part out.
Midianites were in the story of Gideon.
Yeah,
mhm, yeah. But these are names. And they're not, you know,
Wouldn't necessarily be this Midian.
I don't know. Unless the author tells you.
Well, a lot of the names in the Bible become city.
Yeah.
or
So,
people groups.
or people, you know, people groups, so I would, if I had to, I guess I would say that it's probably part of Abraham's family through Keturah. The Midian became the Midianite.
You have, Haran. Go back to Haran. And get my son Isaac a wife.
Right.
Well, Haran is not there. So why Haran? Why does he call it Haran? It's the city, you know, he says Haran, what? Because it's the city where Haran's family is? So, you know,
Say that.
you know what I mean? They use these terms. You don't know how you don't know you know, they'll use a name as a proper name. They'll use it as an indication of where somebody's from. You know, the land of, you could put the land of, or, you know, I don't know. I don't know that it matters any, but anyway, I agree with that. That's one thing. What else? Why is the story here?
Well, first of all, the significance of Isaac. Abraham gave all to Isaac. That's significant. He's the son of promise. No, the others are sons of promise. But, I'm jumping ahead to the next paragraph, so I'll be quiet.
Yeah, you have all this progeny, so that's fulfillment. This is a fulfillment passage. Abraham had a lot of nations came out of Abraham's lineage. Here's a whole bunch more that no hint of prior to this story. We had no idea about Keturah or any of these sons. It just kind of pops in. So here's a whole new list of nations that come out of Abraham.
When it says his concubines, is it referring to Keturah?
I don't think so.
I think it is.
Or is it
but I'm not
other women?
I think he's talking about,
sure.
because there's a contrast, it's a different set of sons. That's the point, right?
Anybody who wasn't Sarah is probably the concubines, as refers to in verse 6.
Because he distinguishes Keturah from the concubines.
You know,
Okay.
but then did he give gifts only to the sons of the concubines and not to the sons of Keturah? That's
No,
I don't know.
Well, I think a lot of it too is, he goes on, well, talks about Ishmael's family. They took out taking down Egypt, reared the Egyptian. And basically, back in the 14 or so, when Hagar went out into when she was kicked out of the home the first time. God said, your son's gonna become a great nation, but there's gonna be enmity between your son and Isaac. And it's basically continued till today.
Yeah.
So basically it comes down to the fact that he ended up having 12 sons, 12 nations, and Jacob ended up having 12 sons and made up Israel. And so there's always been that conflict from day one till today.
And, you know, remember Moses was writing this during the time of the Exodus, right? Or the book of Numbers, I would assume this was written during that time. But he's also helping people understand where these people come from that they're contending with today. They had contentions already with the Midianites, already with Moab. That was coming from Lot, I believe, and many others. Amalekites, they
Yep.
come from Lot too. And so.
Amalek, yeah.
I think he's establishing that in the narrative to help the people understand how it all.
This is a book about origins
It is, that's what you're.
from beginning to end. How did the creation of the heavens and the earth, the origin of the covenant, the origin of the nation of Israel, the origin of the people of God, how they ended up in Egypt, a slave people. It's a book about origins from beginning to end. These are the days of the years of Abraham's life, 175 years. Abraham breathed his last and died at a good old age. An old man and full of years was gathered to his people, which is an interesting statement because he had no people in Canaan. So, wow. Isaac and Ishmael, here he comes. His sons buried him in the cave of Machpelah in the field of Ephron, long story there from before, the son of Zohar the Hittite, east of Mamre, the field that Abraham purchased from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with Sarah his wife, and after the death of Abraham, God blessed Isaac his son, and Isaac settled at Beer Lahai Roi. So somehow Ishmael finds out about Abraham and his death. So there's somebody's keeping in touch. And he comes back and he participates in the burial. So once again, you see there's no conflict between Abraham and Lot. And there's no conflict between Isaac and Ishmael. All these promises are being worked out. Lot was a threat to the covenant. He got moved out. Ishmael was a threat to the covenant. He got moved out. Esau's going to be a threat to the covenant. He's going to get moved out. But in all three cases, it turns out it's kind of a happy ending as far as the two competitors, if you will. There's no animosity between them, as it turns out. Jacob thought there was. We'll find that story out.
What strikes me here is Ishmael came back for his father's funeral, but the sons of Keturah did not.
Or he just doesn't say anything about it. What do I got to say about that? Pretty, except why is it here, right? We're back to that again. Why did you tell that story? Why bother telling the story?
Well, part of that is the significance of the cave of Machpelah.
Yep.
And because that's gonna come back again. I'm pretty sure Isaac must have been buried there. We know that Jacob requests that his body be brought
Yep.
back from Egypt to be buried in that cave.
Rachel?
Rachel was not buried there. Leah was. Rachel was buried up by Bethel, if I remember right.
Yeah, she died on the tree.
That's right.
She died in childbirth.
Yeah, that cave, that land and that cave represent roots.
Yeah.
And Joseph was buried there too. They brought him back. He was buried
Oh.
there too.
So that's ground zero. In a sense, for the nation of Israel. That's the people, and where, that represents something very, very important in the history of Israel. That single piece of land. So he keeps bringing it up. So Abraham dies. He is the recipient of the promise. The promise passes down to Isaac. And so we see that statement in verse 11 in blue there, God blessed Isaac. And what he means is Isaac inherits the promises and God blesses him accordingly. And then he settles in the city here, which I don't really care about. I think
That phrase again that you highlighted was gathered to his people. Interesting phrase. I've never stopped and thought about it. Same is said about Moses and about Aaron in the book of Numbers, or Numbers and Deuteronomy, I guess. It's very Eastern Asian type of thing to say.
yeah, their sense of tradition and lineage and their connection to the past. We don't understand it, and we have no value of it. It has no value for us. Very few people, how many people in here know the name of their great grandmother?
It's written on-
Three?
I know some of them. Daisy.
Now go back one. Great. These people, look at the lineages, even all the way back to Jesus in the book of Luke and Mark, or Matthew. That mattered. Sense of national identity and a sense of family identity. Very, very important to these people. And that got overturned with the individualism and the rejection of tradition and so forth that came with the Enlightenment in the 1600s, 1700s. That was a casualty. They threw the baby out with the bathwater. A casualty of that Enlightenment, individualistic Enlightenment way of thinking, and the suspicion of tradition and so forth.
You mentioned this phrase, gathered to his people. This week, Bodie Bacham died, and I read his announcement saying he has left the land of the dying and entered the land of the
Yeah, wasn't
living.
that a beautiful statement?
Wow. Slavery.
Yeah, I've mentioned, you have these statements. There's no place like home. Let's go back to that one, Wizard of Oz, 1939. One of the things that makes The Wizard of Oz so enduring, if you just ignore Hollywood and the Hollywood lot and the movie studios and their predatory nature, on and on and on, just ignore all that for a minute, as hard as it is. The storytelling, there's a case of a movie which endures partly because the main theme is so timeless and reaches across all generations, all times, everywhere in the world. In what was it, in 2000, what's 39 plus 70? 2009?
Yeah.
Was it the 50th? It was either the 50th. I think it was the 50th anniversary.
That'd be 89.
There's this parade in New York or somewhere for the Wizard of Oz, there's a Wizard of Oz parade. All generations. The kids, all the way up to people who were, who was still alive that were there when the movie came out. It's just that enduring. And you have that simple statement. What do the shoes represent? She clicks the shoes 3 times. What does she say?
It's like home.
No place like home. Did she mean an apartment somewhere where you sleep at night?
Kansas.
A rental, someplace where you have a lease agreement? She means that plot of land to the 3rd and 4th generation. That's what she means. There's no place like home. But that's been done away with. And instead, we have the ridiculous substitute that's a shadow of the real thing. Home is where the heart is. And if that's all you got, then okay, that's all you got. But there's a vast difference between there's no place like home and home is where the heart is.
One of the things that Gail and I have struggled with, having moved around a lot, not stuck in a family home. Gail didn't have a family home because her dad moved around a lot too. But, my parents lived in Montpelier until they died. They weren't born there, but they lived there the whole married life. And so she says, well, where do you want to be buried? You want to be buried next to your parents in the cemetery there? She says, I think those plots are right there. She says, well, do you want to be buried there? I don't know. I said, you should just have me cremated so you don't get tied to a spot.
Would it have ever occurred to these people to have themselves cremated? I mean, just think about the popularity of cremation. That's for this time, when there's no connection to the past.
Some ancient rites had people.
Yeah, they did,
being
yeah.
burned, basically cremation.
But I'm talking about this. Yeah. In my case, I can say, well, I don't want to be cremated. I want to be buried where my ancestors, they're not anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't even know where my grandmother and grandfather were buried. I forgot. I think it's in Pinconning. But Pinconning I don't have any connection to Pinconning,
They got good cheese.
Yeah.
you know? I don't know. And even though my dad was cremated, my mom was cremated. I have no idea about my aunts and uncles and, I don't even know which of my aunts and uncles are still alive. On my mom's side, there were 11 of them. And a lot of them are in Michigan. Flint, and they're working class Michigan people. Oh, we're way off
You're
guard.
trying to say you didn't keep track with your family, didn't keep touch with your family.
No, and I'm the worst offender. Yeah, I'm more so than most people. I'm more a nomad. I have even more of a nomadic mindset about that sort of thing than the average person. Yeah, average person much younger than me.
I got you way off topic, sorry.
I blame you. All right, this city right here, we've heard that city before. The place where the angel of the Lord appeared to Hagar.
Okay.
And-
God sees, huh?
Yeah. All right, move on.
And the bear refers to a well, right? The well of God who sees or something.
I have no idea. Is that it?
I
I'll
think
take your
so.
word for it. Let's find out, since we're already distracted because of Phil.
I'm a little distracting people.
Why did that open?
You're in Zoom right now, is that where you want it?
The well, according to AI, which is Bible Hub. Interesting.
Well, I was actually right.
You were actually right. You can go ahead and write this day down. Phil was actually right. You can get a bumper sticker. I was actually right. Sunday, September 28, 2025. My sarcasm coming into play, I should knock it up. These are the generations of Ishmael. Interesting. Abraham didn't get a generations of. Cain got one. Adam got one. Cain got one. Seth got one. Noah. I go back and look at the generations of. Ishmael gets one. Abraham does not get one. Why might Abraham not get one? Answer.
One son.
The entire rest of the book is, this is the genealogy of Abraham.
Yeah.
These are the generations of Ishmael, Abraham's son, whom Hagar the Egyptian. She's always the Egyptian. Maybe every time like this. Sarah's servant bore to Abraham. These are the names of the sons of Ishmael. Now I got to read 12 names. Named in the order of their birth. Nebaioth, the firstborn of Ishmael, and Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam. They almost sound made up. Well, they are made up, but Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jeter, Naphish, and Kedemah.
Last one was the easiest to read.
They're all wrong. I pronounced every one of them wrong, but these are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names by their villages and by their encampments. 12 princes according to their tribes. Why point that out? 12 princes.
The 12 tribes of Jacob.
Did I get this wrong? Genesis 17:20, as for Ishmael, I have heard you, behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and multiply him greatly. He shall father 12 princes, and I will make him into a great nation. Fulfillment, once again. It's not just about Isaac.
Yeah.
These are the years of the life of Ishmael, 137 years. He breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people. This is interesting because why would the sons of Israel at the time of Moses or thereafter, particularly in the conquest and following that, care about the sons of Ishmael. But they recorded.
That well, beer, Lahoi Roy, that was mentioned in the story of Hagar.
Yeah, that was where the angel, that's where she was when the angel appeared to her. And I think it's also where Ishmael was born. Ishmael was born there. I think.
Went back to Abraham and Sarah before Ishmael was born.
Somebody can look it up.
This Havilah to Shur, which is opposite Egypt. In the direction of Assyria. To me, Assyria and Egypt are pretty far apart. So,
Yeah, we'll look at a map in a minute. They settled from Havilah to Shur, which is opposite Egypt in the direction of Assyria. He settled over against all his kinsmen. You can just hear the implicit animosity between those peoples and this people. So this is what Phil is referring to. Shur would be Sinai, the upper part of Sinai, maybe. This is all in dispute. They're not sure about these things, no pun intended. But this is Egypt. Sinai, they don't, I mean, when they talk about Sinai, that's a distinction, that's distinct from Egypt here in this narrative. So they settled opposite Canaan, is that what it said?
opposite Egypt.
Opposite Egypt, from Shur to Havilah as you go towards Assyria. So they populated all these. I mean, you're not going to do much living in Sinai. Not a lot of people are going to live in Sinai. There's no way.
In the desert.
But all of this, you know, these 12 countries, these 12 peoples, they were prolific and they were all scattered out here towards Assyria. That's how I read it. Fulfillment, once again.
Well, basically Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, all that.
And then they keep.
Descendants of Ishmael.
Yeah, I don't know what the Persian line is. Remember that the Iranians, not the people occupying in the government, those are Arabs. But the Iranians, those are Persian. When you think of Iranians, Cyrus, Darius and so forth, that's Persian. Persians are not Arabs. They're a different line. I don't really know, you know, where their lineage, how they trace their lineage.
Or Arabs from Ishmael.
Yeah, that's how I read it. And they certainly think they are.
Yeah.
They think they're the rightful. They think they trace the line of the promise through Ishmael. That's the fundamental difference.
Islam, the name comes from Ishmael,
Yeah,
and so.
So they think of, I was watching this short clip of somebody in the royal family, I think, in Saudi Arabia talking, the context was the situation right now, what's going on in Gaza and so forth. And the Palestinian claimed to be Arab, and he was sternly lecturing on that issue, that they're not Arabs. And he referred to, I have no opinion on that. I'm just just so I can set up the video. But he said the Jews are our cousins. And then he went through the lineage. He said they're our cousins. Almost like it was a family dispute. That's how he thought of it. He had some other harsher things to say.
Well,
On some other issues,
how I see it. I mean, in the whole area of Jordan and whatnot, you know, used to be Esau's territory. It used to
Yeah.
be, you know, Lot and all that stuff. So there's a lot of interrelationship.
so Arabs are physical descendants. You descended from somebody, but Palestinians could just be claiming to be.
It's hard to talk about the Palestinians without getting political. You have to go back to, my watch wants me to get active because it thinks I'm under high stress right now,
Yeah.
which means that I'm all nervous because we're getting dangerous close to politics. But if you go back and trace that, where does the name Palestinian come from? And the answer is it comes from the Roman Empire. When they destroyed Jerusalem, maybe the second time, in 132, the Bar Kokhba rebellion, when they've had enough and they say, all right, no more Jews on the land, we forbid it. And they wanted to kind of wipe out the identity of Judah. They changed the name of the province to, that region from Judea to Syria, Palestina or something like that. And that name stuck. So it's kind of the name of it was kind of a name for a geographic location, not a people group. And so the peoples who ended up there after World War I and II, and the answer is there were these empires like the Ottoman Empire that were disintegrated, and you have these peoples moving and they move into that area, including Jews. But it's like there's more like a collection of it's not a consistent, it's not a single, no, absolutely not. It absolutely is not one ethnic identity, yeah.
Basically, people that settled in the land of Canaan after Israel stopped being a nation. I mean,
Well, no, it would be, that's a statement from Mark Twain. When Mark Twain went there, he was shocked by how empty it was. There was no people there. And then after between the wars, World War I and II, people started migrating there.
yeah,
And then you have the British Mandate after World War II. Now you have Jews moving in and they're buying land. And so there's these various peoples that are there. And then, of course, in 1948, the two-state solution was immediately accepted by the Jews in that territory, immediately rejected by the Arabs, which then the Jews declared an Israeli state, and then war. And here we are. But there were Arabs, but then they were not all Arabs. There were various people groups that were, including Jews, that were living there. But collectively, the non-Jews are now called Palestinians. I think that's 80% right, or 90% right. So you can go check it on the internet if you want, and it will be a hotbed of argument without taking any position on what ought to happen in Gaza or anything else. I see all of that without taking a position on what Israel ought to do or what the Palestinians deserve or anything else. Okay. I think that's as far as we're going to go on that, and we can continue to the interesting part. Yeah, let's continue. Let's get more towards the interesting part. We'll just introduce it and then move from there when the chaos monkey gets unleashed. These are that's a tech reference. I'll tell you about it sometime. These are the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. So we get a generations of Ishmael. Now we get a generations of Isaac. Abraham fathered Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to be his wife. Talk about specifics, right? And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. So now he's going to make a long story short. The story of Abraham and Sarah and their attempt to have a kid goes on forever and ever. Here, to make a long story short, she was barren and the Lord granted his prayer. I'll leave out the details. Rebekah, his wife, conceived. The children, because it took 20 years before he has the kid.
it's almost like Isaac's the middle child between Abraham and Jacob.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. He's the forgotten middle child. The children struggled together within her. And she said, if it is thus, why is this happening to me? So she went to inquire of the Lord. How did she do that? I have no idea. And neither does anybody else. David's going to do the same thing 1,000 years later. He's going to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger by decree. That's it. So what's happening in the womb is a parable, if you will, and an enactment. It's an enactment, prophetic enactment of what is going to happen between these 2 peoples. So older and younger, we have Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael was the older. Perez and Zerah. I forgot who they are. Who are they?
Where's that at?
I don't know. I'm reading off my notes.
Children of Judah.
Yeah, Judah, okay. Perez and Zerah. You have, go ahead.
Children
Was
of
that the
Judah.
Tamar?
By his daughter.
Tamar.
Yeah, Tamar, I'm trying to remember her name.
Jacob's older sons, and then you have Joseph and Benjamin, but Joseph and Benjamin will be favored. And particularly Joseph. Manasseh and Ephraim, who are Joseph's sons. Ephraim will be favored. You have Jesse's older brothers versus David. David will be favored. And then you have Abinijah and Solomon. Abinijah was the older, but Solomon will get the throne. And Abinijah will not want to. I misspelled that. It's Adonijah.
And
Thank you, Gary. One. Let's see. So we had the 12 sons of Ishmael, who are 12 nations. Now we have the 2 sons of Isaac, who are 2 nations. And the second of those nations will be 12 tribes. The older will serve the younger. We'll see that fulfilled under David when he conquers the Edomites, 2 Samuel 8, verses 12 through 14. And now that he said that, the older will serve the younger, the narrative of the Bible, the whole thing will unfold according to that plan. But in this story, Esau will never be subject to Jacob. In fact, it'll almost seem the other way around. Jacob will be the one on the run. Jacob will be the one who approaches Esau in almost a slave-like, with almost a slave-like posture, presenting gifts and so on and so forth to try to appease him.
he also gets the idea going through the narrative that either Rebecca did not communicate this statement from the Lord to Isaac, or else he wasn't on board with it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. Did not. Isaac is going to favor Esau, but we'll see in a minute. And he will only bless Jacob because actually he will. So God outsmarts him in that sense. He was going to bless Esau as Esau being the elder. He was going to pass on to Esau. And God said, no, you're not going to pass on to Esau. You're going to pass on to Jacob, and I'm going to take control of the situation. And I'm going to use, in my view, Jacob's conniving nature to bring it about. Yeah.
They all think we're the other.
Yep. All things, even bad, work together for good. Romans 8. Okay, let's see. 24. We'll get back to that. We'll look at past Romans 9, maybe the next time, or we can stop right now and look at it. No, it's just going to open. It's going to open a can of worms, so we're not going to do that. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. We already knew that. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak.
This is interesting.
So they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came out with his hand holding Esau's heel. That's an enacted parable too, right? Because that's how they're going to go. So his name was called Jacob. It's as if the narrative is saying Jacob is plotting from the womb. I'm gonna get you.
That's what the name means, planner.
And it's gonna happen before the end of the chapter. They're gonna get right to it.
Covered in this chapter.
So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them. Rebecca.
So she was buried for 20 years.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll go ahead and stop there. And we'll get into 27 and following. I think they got their headings mixed up, or, I think 27, 28 belong in the next section. Intro to the next section, not closing the last section. So we'll talk about it then. Okay. We already know that Jacob's going to be the heir from the womb. And that's it. And we'll go ahead and stop there. Right on time. See you all.